Sweet Life Realty Group has been in existence since 2013. We are a full-service boutique real estate group. Sweet Life Realty Group specializes in residential real estate, single-family homes, townhomes, condominiums, vacant land, new construction. We also assist our clients with commercial leases, whether you're looking to open a restaurant, new retail store, or a medical office, for example.
I had no idea on what I needed to do or what direction I needed to take. And Sweet Life Realty, they showed me, they walked me through the process, made me feel comfortable and relaxed. Every question that I had, they addressed. It felt more like a friendship opposed to a business deal that I was going through. Even when the deal was all closed, Sweet Life Realty always remained in contact with me for a few weeks to make sure I was comfortable in my home. From the beginning to the end, they were friendly, they were professional, and I would recommend them to anyone.
We like to say our motto is real estate for real life. What are your real life scenarios? Are you a first-time home buyer? Are you a retired veteran and you need to use your VA benefits? We'll walk you through all those processes. So there's just so many advantages to moving to Florida. We have beautiful weather, we have beaches, boating, fishing, golf, tennis. You can do it year-round here.
My experience with Sweet Life started, we had picked up a flyer walking out of Publix in Stewart, and they had an advertisement page, and we immediately honed in on a house that was on that page as a listing. Sweet Life learned all the things that we were really looking for, and probably by the end of the day, we had a list of houses that we wanted to start looking at.
We do have certain expectations that we want and things that we knew that we needed, and it just felt that those needs, we were heard.
Anybody who talks about needing realty assistance, I know 50 realtors. I recommend one.
For the service you deserve, please call our agents at Sweet Life Realty Group at 772-617-6800.
Good evening. On behalf of the Treasure Coast, Florida chapter of the Links Incorporated, we welcome you to this evening's program, Buy Homes, Not Shoes, Finding the Right Realtor. This evening, we have two phenomenal presenters with us to share their expertise on finding the right realtor so that you can discover the treasures of homeownership. Next slide. My name is Tanya Lowe, and I am one of the program coordinators. Next slide. Before we get started, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. Next slide. This webinar is being recorded. Each participant should remain muted. Please enter your questions in the chat box, and there will be a Q&A session that will immediately follow the presentation. Next slide. Before we get into the presentation, if you will, we'd like to test your knowledge about finding the right realtor and buying a home. So if you will, take your camera and point it towards the QR code on your screen. Hold it so that hold your device over the QR code until you see the pop-up window. When it recognizes the code, go ahead and tap that notification, and please take a moment to complete this pre-evaluation or this test of your knowledge. For this test of your knowledge, once you complete the evaluation, once you hit done, you should see your results. So this evening, we have a surprise for everyone that's participating. The very first person who has at least 100% correct answers, if you will, the very first person to put their name in the chat will win a gift card. And it looks like everyone is busy thinking about those questions. They're kind of tough, aren't they? And tonight, we're going to learn all of the answers to those questions. Our two presenters are going to present us with their expertise about finding the right home, finding the right realtor, working with that realtor, as well as what's taking place in the market today, the real estate market today. And I see we have one person in the chat. Do we have anyone else? We have Miss Liz Jackson. She has 4 out of 5 correct. Liz, it appears that you are the winner this evening. So we do have your contact information, and we will provide you with a gift card. As we go through the presentation, you're going to actually get the answers to all of the questions in this pre-webinar evaluation that tests your knowledge about the real estate market. Next slide. This evening, you are in for a real treat. Let me tell you a little bit about our presenters this evening. First, we have Miss Helen Henderson. Helen was born and raised in New York City. She relocated to St. Lucie County in 2003, where she has been an active and vocal member of her community. Her dedication has inspired her to become engrossed in real estate to further her connection with the community and honorably assist buyers and sellers with their real estate needs. Helen attended Bethune-Cookman University, where she received a dual bachelor's degree in psychology and criminal justice. After that, she attended the State University of New York at Albany, where she received her master's degree in criminal justice. Helen is very passionate about serving the public, and in her spare time, she volunteers with various organizations throughout the Treasure Coast. We also have with us this evening, Ms. Tamara Celeste. Tamara is an attorney, real estate broker, coach, entrepreneur, and best-selling author of Buy Homes, Not Shoes. An unshakable optimist, her mission is to empower, educate, and support women in their quest to purchase real estate, thus enabling them to increase their net worth and build wealth so that it has a direct positive financial impact on their lives and the lives of their families. Tamara wants to take away the anxiety and uncertainty that many people have about buying or starting the buying process, the home buying process. Tamara's superpower is that when she's talking to you, she's like one of your girlfriends or a sister. She's able to explain the real estate terminology in easy to understand terms and break down the real estate process for you so that you feel comfortable and confident. When you're ready to purchase your first home, Tamara believes that buying a home should be exciting and not complicated or confusing. Without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Helen and Tamara. Next slide.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tamara Celeste, as Tanya mentioned, and I'm so excited to be here this evening. Can everyone hear me okay? Yes? Okay. Okay, so I'm excited to be here. And we're here tonight, excuse me, because anyone who does not yet own a home and is renting, I want you to fire your landlord. Next slide, please. I want everyone to say you are fired to your landlord. So that is the purpose of this call this evening. Next slide, please. So as Tanya mentioned, I'm just really, really passionate about real estate. I have a burn in my heart and my spirit, especially for first-time home buyers. I want to see people move to the next level, to help them increase their wealth, to help them have that security of home ownership, especially in this time when rental prices are through the roof. Home prices are also, but if there are some homes still available, and you can buy a home right now for almost the same amount you would pay in rent. So I'm really, really passionate about helping first-time home buyers. I've been in the business since 2005. I am a former attorney and Wall Street executive. And so far, I've served over close to 600 families and counting in my career. Next slide, please. So I want to just kind of walk you through some of the steps in the home buying process. This is before your offer. So we're going to talk about these a little bit more in depth. So the first step is, talk to a realtor or a mortgage lender to get the process started. Some people say, well, who do I talk to first? Do I talk to the lender or do I talk to the realtor? And usually what I tell people is whoever your first point of contact will be. Because if you talk to a realtor, any good realtor is going to send you to a trusted mortgage lender. And if you talk to a mortgage lender, like you have a friend in the business or something, they are going to connect you with a good realtor. So either way, you will get that process started by touching base with one of the two initially. Second, you will get your pre-approval for your mortgage from your lender. And this will tell you how much you qualify for, and it'll also give you a budget in which to work with. So a lot of times I hear people saying, well, why do I have to get my pre-approval first? Can I go look at homes first? Well, I like to say, when you walk into a doctor's office, what's the first thing they ask for? Your insurance card, right? They want to know that you have the insurance to purchase the home. It's kind of like that, especially in this market. You would just be going blind, throwing darts at the wall if you don't know what you qualify for, and more importantly, your own budget. Like you have to be comfortable with your monthly payment. So it's always good to get that pre-approval first before you move to the next step. So then the third step will be sit down and figure out what must you have in your home and what would you like to have. That's a big, big difference. And I'll go into a couple of examples about that. Then you would look at homes. You would decide on your home, and then you'd sit down with your realtor to discuss price, market value, and your offer and the terms of your offer, and then you would submit your written offer. So, and next slide, please. So again, we're going backwards. So step one, again, would be to talk to your realtor or mortgage lender. Next slide. And Helen, I want to have Helen just talk a little bit about the realtor. What does the realtor bring to the process?
Yes, thank you, Tamra. Again, my name is Helen Lurie, and I'm also a realtor. So I wanted to discuss some of the questions that we hear from time to time. One is, do I need my own realtor? And that's either on the buying process or the selling process. And my answer to you is yes. Yes, you need your own realtor, and I'll explain why. When you see a house listed, you have to understand that oftentimes that individual has a realtor that is representing them. They are not thinking about your best interests. They are protecting the best interests of the person's home that they listed. So it's important that you come in and have your realtor that will be able to represent you and have information to provide to just kind of know your situation. You want someone that knows your background, your situation, how much you can afford, and if this is going to work for you. So when negotiation starts, they will be working in your best interest. Second, how do I find a realtor? Oftentimes, that's the question. Well, where do I find one? Well, start with people that you know. If you have a friend, if you have a family member that may have sold a house, purchased a house, ask them if they have referrals. Referrals are great. If they had a good experience with their realtor, then they are going to refer the realtor to you, right? So that's definitely somewhere where you can start. I mean, there's other ways. You can walk into a brokerage and tell them that you're interested in the buying process or listing your property. But referrals are so personal because they can tell you whether or not this person worked for them or with the pros and the cons with that particular realtor. Now, how does my realtor get paid? That's often a question. So your realtor, if you are looking to buy a property, it means the property, you've identified a property that you want to purchase. The person that listed the property with an agent has already established a commission split of how that particular realtor is going to get paid. So that's already established. So now you come into the picture and you now want to purchase the home. And say myself or Tamara is representing you. So the question becomes, how is Tamara or how is Helen going to get paid? Well, in that listing, it's already established how any realtor that's involved in a transaction is going to get paid. So that's already established. And that commission setup is already established, and the person that's selling the home would be involved in that. Now, what's the difference between a realtor and a real estate agent? Hear that question all the time. What I want to tell you is that realtors are governed by the National Association of Realtors, so we are held to a higher standard. We have ethics codes that we need to follow. There's serious consequences for violating the codes. So just know that when you are working with a realtor, there are ethical practices that you are going to experience because that we are held to a higher standard. Now, lastly, what is the realtor going to do for me? What is this realtor, when I get the realtor, why can't I just sell my home on my own? This is what we hear all the time. Why do I need to bring a realtor into the process? Now, at this point, Tamara's going to go through what a realtor is going to do for you. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much, Helen. And just to reiterate, this is not an exhaustive list. There are so many. I think there's a list of like 108 items that a realtor does for what we do for our clients. So this is just a very short list. But just to give you an example, if you are coming to us to buy a home, again, just to really reiterate again, as Helen mentioned, as a buyer, you're not paying our commission. So it really is to your benefit to go ahead and find your own realtor and work with that realtor, because they are going to look out for your best interests and they are there to work for you, and you don't have to pay for it. So, I mean, how cool is that? So what a realtor does for you is we search for homes, we schedule showings and accompany you on those showings. We advise you on the price. We do all that research. We prepare, present, and negotiate the offers and any counter offers on your behalf. We coordinate and communicate with your lender. We assist you with finding vendors such as home inspectors, et cetera, which we'll talk about a little later. We help you coordinate any home inspections and the appraisals and any other items. We make sure you meet all of your deadlines in the contract, which we're not going to go into the contract tonight, but within your contract, you have certain deadlines that you have to meet, and we make sure we stay on top of all those deadlines, such as when you have to have your loan approval, and if you're moving into a condo association or an association with the HOA, there are certain deadlines to get your applications in. So we monitor all those things to make sure that you don't violate the contract. And then we're here to just answer your questions and ease your mind in general. That's what we're here for. And we have an interest in making sure that you move forward with the transaction and it moves forward as smoothly as possible. Again, as we mentioned, we don't get paid until the closing. So if it takes you, I tell some clients, sometimes people feel bad. And it's like, oh, I don't want, it's taken me a long time. It's not about me. If it takes 6 months for you to find a home, Helen and I can both attest to it. If it takes 6 months, that's fine. It's about you. So we are here for you. Next slide, please. And please, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Okay, so moving on to step 2. So the next step 2 is getting pre-approved for a loan. So you're approved now. Yay, step 3. I'm sorry, next slide.
Helen, yes, I'll be talking about costs. This is a question that people typically have, like, what is it going to cost? How much money am I going to need for a down payment? As Tamara explained earlier, there are many people out there that are paying rent that may be more expensive or equally expensive as a mortgage payment. So how do you determine, how's that determination made of how much I'm going to pay? How much money do I need to bring to the closing table? What is an appraisal going to cost? What is a home inspection going to cost? So what you see on this, you should see on your screen right now, is a list of some costs. And you should see that we are going to start covering some of the questions that you had in your pre-test. So this acronym, the PITI, Tamara's going to go over that in a little bit. So here are some things to think about when you are going through the home buying process. What is this PITI? What is that going to mean to me? A down payment, like how much do I actually need to pay as a down payment? Closing costs, what's included in the closing costs? Home inspection, is that something that I have to pay for? Is that something that my lender's going to pay for? Appraisal, at what stage, what point of the process will the appraisal occur, and what is that going to cost? Is that something that I need to pay for out of pocket? So it's important to understand that there are going to be some costs along the way. And just having that understanding and being prepared will get you on the right track. And then the last thing is, where am I going to get all this money from? There's this list of things, of all these things that have to come out of pocket, Helen, but where am I going to get this money from? But don't worry, I have some information later for you that will explain where you can get some of this money from. Next slide, please.
So thank you, Helen. As Helen mentioned, so let's talk about PITI. That's a term that is very common in real estate. And so it refers to your mortgage payment. Your mortgage payment is made up of 4 elements. The P is principal, the I is interest, the T is taxes, and the second I is insurance. Okay, next slide, please. So let me give you an example of how this all comes together. So let's say you're approved for $250,000. Okay, your monthly payment on that $250,000 is $1,600 a month for your home. Well, that $1,600 is made up of those 4 elements. So your principal and interest, what you pay to the bank to borrow the money, and the interest they charge you, that would make up, in this example, $1,100. And then let's say your taxes are $4,800 a year. You break that down into monthly payments. So that's $400 a month. And then let's say your insurance, to cover the insurance against loss of your property, that is $1,200 a year, and that would break down to $100 a month. So that's how we get to the $1,600. So that's your principal and interest, your taxes, and your insurance. Next slide, please. So a lot of people, again, another terms that you hear thrown around in the industry is down payment and closing costs, down payment and closing costs. And people think it's all one number, and it is not. So your down payment is actually the minimum amount required for you to put down based on the loan you're approved for. And I have a slide coming up to show you what I mean by that. And your closing costs, so they're 2 separate things. Your closing costs are the actual amount, the amount it will cost you to obtain a mortgage and to close on your loan, on your home. So the closing costs, think of as what your lender is going to charge you to borrow that money. And your down payment is what is required by the government, or the mortgage, the type of mortgage that you're getting. If you go to the next slide, I can kind of break it down a little more. Okay, so these are the most common types of loans. So FHA, VA, conventional, and USDA. Most first-time home buyers, unless you're a veteran, you qualify for a VA loan. A FHA loan. So FHA requires a minimum down payment of 3.5%. Okay, you can always put down more money, but the minimum you have to put down, you can put down, is 3.5%. So let's break that down. On a $100,000 loan, that would be $3,500. Okay. VA, as a veteran, one of the benefits, you don't have to put any money down. So you don't have to worry about down payment. You worry about your closing costs. You pay your closing costs. Conventional, same thing. Conventional mortgages range anywhere from 3% down. I mean, you can put down as much money as you want to, 20, 30, 40%. And USDA, which is available in rural areas, and some of the counties in the Tri-County area, Vero, Martin, St. Lucie, and Indian River, do qualify for USDA. So that's something that Helen and I can definitely talk to you about, and I'm sure one of the lenders talked to in a previous training. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So closing costs, what are they? What do I need for closing costs? So closing costs are made up of a lot of different things. So they could be, your lender charges a fee to originate your loan, to give you a loan. They may charge a fee. You have to pay your taxes up front. What we talked about, $4,800 a year, you have to prepay some of that up front to your lender into an escrow account. So that would qualify as some of your closing costs. You have to pay your insurance, that $1,200 a year we talked about for insurance, you have to pay that a year in advance, and put that in your escrow account with your lender. So that's part of your closing costs. You have to pay for a survey of your land, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. That needs to be paid. You have to pay for title insurance, a title search, and if you're going to hire an attorney, and other title fees. So all those fees are lumped together as part of your closing costs. Next slide, please. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example based going back on that $250,000 FHA loan. So if you remember, FHA requires a minimum of 3.5% down. So if you were to get an FHA loan at 3.5% down for $250,000, your down payment would be $8,750. Okay. Closing costs range anywhere from 3 to 4%. So I just put 4% just to go on the high end. If it's less, it works out better because you don't have to put as much money down. So closing costs can range about $10,000. So you add those two up to close on your mortgage for down payment and closing costs. You would, on a $250,000 loan, you would need $18,750. It sounds like a big number, but we're going to talk about how we can help you get that number down. Next slide. Some other costs I just wanted to mention that is not part of your closing costs, but are part of the closing process is a home inspection. A home inspection is not it's not required by your lender. It is highly, highly recommended. And Helen and I just talked about this earlier. We definitely suggest that you have a home inspection, because what a home inspection does is it tells you things that may be wrong with the house. So, and it's usually like the big things. You want to make sure the plumbing, there's no leaks, and you want to make sure the roof is okay in your AC unit. So you want to spend that money, that $500, to know if there's any big ticket items that might be occurring down in the future, because you don't want surprises. So it's definitely worth getting the home inspection. But one thing I want to say about a home inspection is since it's not required, I tell people, if you have someone that you trust that is in the, I just had a client 2 weeks ago, their brother-in-law is a general contractor. He did the home inspection to save her $400 or $500. He went through the house thoroughly, wrote out a list because he has that experience. So just as a tip, if you have someone you trust that's a contractor or a handyman who knows homes, that is something that you can definitely do to save yourself a little money. But if you don't, I don't recommend you skipping that part. The other thing is an appraisal. That is an upfront fee that you have to pay before you close. And the lender will send out an appraiser to make sure that the home is valued at what you're paying for it. They don't want anyone paying too much for a home. So if you're buying a home for $250,000, but they send their appraiser out and it appraises for $200,000, they're going to say, you know what, we can't loan you the money on that, and you should find another home. It's not worth what you're paying. So that would bring up your minimum cash to close if we add another $1,000 to about $19,750. Again, that sounds like a lot of money, but we're going to talk about how we can help you get some help with that. Next slide, please.
Tamara, before you move on, we just want to remind everybody, we want this to be interactive. So please put your questions in the chat. And if you could just speak to us a little bit more about the appraisal. So if I'm going through a lender, can I choose the appraiser? You
cannot. You cannot. Let me just go back a little bit. Before the housing market crash in 2008, there was a lot of unscrupulous things going on in the mortgage industry. So you had appraisers who were going out and they were in cahoots with the mortgage lenders who were selling these properties. So they would say, hey, how much do you need this house to appraise for? And that's a lot. And there were so many factors that happened that's why the mortgage meltdown happened. But that was just one of the many, many factors where they were in cahoots. So they'd say, hey, we need this to appraise for $300,000 when it really wasn't. So after that, when they enacted all these laws, and I don't want to bore everyone with it, but Dodd-Frank was one of them that was enacted by Congress. They put these walls in place where now you can't order your own appraisal. The lender has to order it, but the lender has to order the appraisal through a third-party company, and they can't have any contact. They can't call the appraiser and say, hey, we need this house to appraise for this. They're not supposed to have any contact whatsoever. So it's supposed to be a completely, legitimate, objective appraisal. So no, you can't pick the appraiser. The lender picks the appraiser, but the lender cannot have direct contact with the appraiser, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you for clearing that up for us.
Yes.
Okay, so now Tamara has went from $18,000 that you're going to need out of pocket to $19,000, and the question becomes, where am I getting this money from? So number one, if you're thinking about buying a home, you shouldn't just wake up tomorrow and say, I'm going to go home buying the next day. There should be a plan in place. You should be looking to save. And many of you who have been with us since we started this program, our master classes, you should remember that we had Jean Broom on with us, who gave us tips on how to improve our credit, right? Mm-hmm. Just to get that piece under works. But once that whole credit, or in addition, simultaneously while you're working on your credit, you should also be saving. You should also say, what can I legitimately save on a regular basis? Let me make a budget. Let me look at where I can cut costs so I can have some form of savings. Because as you see, there is some money. You're going to have to contribute some money out of pocket. Now, here comes a question that might have stumped some. And I knew the questions, and I got stumped on this question. So the question is, could you get a loan from a family member? That was the question, and I read it too quickly, so I read it wrong. So I got it wrong. And the answer is no. You cannot get a loan, but you can definitely get a gift. If a family wants to gift you, mom wants to gift you, dad, cousin, whoever wants to give you a gift to help you with this process, then it's welcome. If the lender has reason to believe that you have a loan, just think about it. That's another debt that you have, right? So we can't get loans, but we can get gifts from family members. The seller, like, what do you mean? The seller can help me out? Yeah, there are many deals that go on, transactions that happen where the seller will contribute to the closing costs of the buyer, and they can assist in the process also. So that's another way that you can come up with some of your money. I've actually had situations where the buyer have said to me, the agent said to me, we would like some funds back from the seller to assist them with the funds that they needed. And in that scenario, it did work out. The seller did contribute. The next one, state, county, and city programs. So there are programs out there to assist you with these funds that you need. Another one that I want to, if you're buying something in St. Lucie County, I know our association, Realtors Association, we have a program, we have a grant that we can apply for. So when we're working with our buyers, we can apply for that grant. And there are some stipulations. You have to meet certain guidelines, but we can apply for it. That can assist you with your closing costs. A 401k. Oftentimes people are afraid to take money from their 401k, but this is a time when you can safely use some money from your 401k if it's clear that you're using this money to purchase a home. Employer programs, check with your employer, see if they have any home buying assistant programs built in. Some employers do offer that to their employees, so take a look at that. And lastly, side hustles. Outside of your 9 to 5, is there something else that you do? Is there something else that you're good at that can help you get some additional income that can go towards this saving, so that you can have the funds that you need for your closing costs and your down payment? Thank you. Next slide.
Does anyone have any questions?
Okay.
Okay. All right. So step 3. Thank you, Helen. So now you've met with your realtor, you've met with your lender, you've gotten pre-approved. So now you're going to get ready to start looking at homes. So at this point, I like to have my clients think about what they must have in a home and what they would like to have in a home, especially in this market. So if, for instance, you would like to have 4 bedrooms, but it's you and 1 child, and 3 bedrooms is enough, focus on a minimum 3 bedrooms instead of being a firm, hey, I really want to have 4-bedroom home, because that may cut out a lot of other homes that you're looking for in your price range. If you must have a garage, it does, but you would love to have a 3-car garage, you know what? Don't focus on, hey, just give me listings with 3-car garages, because again, you'll miss out on some things. I don't say, hey, I have to have a fenced yard. If you have a nice backyard and you can fence it in later, that's great. Again, covered patio versus screen patio, updated kitchen versus a fully renovated. So just kind of when you're thinking about what you want in a home, really, really, again, and we're in a really a different market right now, which we'll talk about in a little bit. If you can be as flexible as possible, you will open up more options for yourself and your family. Next slide, please. So steps 4 and 5, after you've done all that, is the fun part. You get out there, you start viewing homes, and then you make your final decision on 1 or 2 homes that you like, you narrow it down. Okay, next slide, please. And step 6 and 7 would be, once you found that home and you're ready to put in your offer, you're going to discuss the price with your realtor. And then you are going to submit that offer and present it to your realtor will present that to the seller. Next slide, please. Okay, I'm going to have Helen talk a little bit before. We're going to assume that your offer gets accepted, and we're going to walk you through the phases after your offer is accepted. But I want Helen to just kind of go into a little bit. We talked about them briefly, but just talk about the players that are involved in the real estate market, in the real estate transaction.
Okay, thank you, Tamara. Yes, so I think it's important that you know that there are multiple players. You have your realtor, which I explained earlier, who's looking out for your best interest, but it's also important for you to know that there are other people that are very important throughout this process. So your lender, we've identified how you're going to find your lender. Last week's masterclass discussed how to actually identify your lender. So one thing, if you have a good relationship with your current lender, you bank somewhere, there may be somewhere that you want to look first. We were also given a tip to kind of shop around for lenders, talk to different lenders, at least 3, to see which one you feel more comfortable with, because it's all about you. This process is all about you and what you're going to feel comfortable with. And again, as Tamara mentioned earlier, say you don't have a lender, but you have a realtor. Ask your realtor. That is my number 1 question when I speak to prospective buyers is, do you have a lender? Because I have a series of lenders that I work with, and I give them, it is not for me to choose your lender, but I give them options. Here are some lenders, you can talk to them and you can see which one you feel more comfortable with. Now, the title company is responsible for making sure that they provide you with a title that is free and clear of any liens, just to make sure that when you purchase this property, there's no pre-existing liens that's on this property, that you're getting it free and clear, and that's what you want. Your insurance agent, we have Tanya Lowe on here, and I know she does a lot with the home buyers, but you definitely need to get an insurance agent. You have to have your property insured. So if you're looking for an insurance agent, Tanya Lowe is on here and can assist you with that. Your home inspector. We talked about the home inspector a little bit earlier. I was just at a home inspection earlier today. Again, when people are starting the home buying process, oftentimes I know as a realtor, you don't know, you may not know who to call for a home inspector. Ask your realtor. They probably have a circle of people that they work with. So I make recommendations on home inspectors. If I have a good experience with them, I recommend those individuals. So I was out at the inspection today for the duration of the inspection with our home inspector. And after the inspection, kind of give me a preliminary of what he thought, but what we expect afterwards is a full written report of his findings, of their findings for the property. And as Tamara mentioned, it's a step that you probably do not want to skip, because you want to go in there, whether you have an official inspector or your contractor, but you want to go in there and kind of have an understanding of what you're getting yourself into before you purchase your home. Your appraiser, this was already mentioned, but your appraiser, again, is not someone that you're going to have conversation with. Your lender will order that appraiser, and the appraiser will go out and make the determination of how much is this property worth. You know, if you're buying the property for $200,000, is it worth $200,000? And that's important for you to know. And then lastly is your surveyor that will go out and really just take a look at your property, establish how much of this land is actually going to be yours, how much of this, to see if there's any, if your neighbors if there's any encroachment on your property. What does that mean? Maybe the neighbor next door had a fence put up, and guess what? He scooted over just a tad bit and now he's on your property. Or maybe the fence that's on your property is encroached on their property. So all of that information they will provide. Sometimes you find out you actually have more property than you thought. So all of these players, again, if you're buying a home, is something that we'll probably do once or twice, or if you're lucky enough, 3 or 4 times in your life. So you're not always conscious of the fact that there are all these players that need to work together. And just know that your realtor is oftentimes in the background coordinating with all of these individuals. Your realtor is in communication with your lender, your title company, and the other players that they need to be in contact with. Okay, at this time, I'm going to turn it back over to Tamara.
Thank you. Thanks, Helen. Next slide, please. So Helen just gave a great explanation of all the players. So we already talked about your offer, what happens before you submit your offer. So we're assuming that your offer is accepted. And now we're going to the steps afterwards and how those players all become a part of the equation. So the next step would be your offer is accepted. And then you would then submit your escrow deposit or your earnest money deposit to the title company. What that means is you have to show good faith. You want to say, hey, I'm serious about buying this home. I'm going to give you money to put in escrow to show my good faith in purchasing this home. Usually it's about 1% of the purchase price on average. So if you're buying a $200,000 home, you can figure on putting $2,000 in escrow. And that $2,000 will be deducted from the down payment that we talked about earlier in the slide. So if your down payment is $87.50, you put down $2,000 in escrow, your balance would be $6,750. At that point, after accepted, you already been approved for a loan. So you're like, well, why do I have to submit an application? Because that was like a preliminary. Now the lender really wants to dig deep. So you got to submit a loan application on that specific house. They're going to ask you for some more documentation, some additional questions. They're going to go ahead and order your appraisal. I do have a tip about that, though. I recommend to my clients that we hold off on ordering the appraisal until after your home inspections, as long as we have enough time. That way, if there's an issue with the home inspection, you haven't paid for a home inspection and an appraisal. So today, I just asked one of my lenders to go ahead and order the appraisal because the inspection results came back fine. So you can kind of hold off on that for, I would say, for like a week or so if your inspection is going to be taking place that week, just in case. But generally, they will order that appraisal. The next step would be to schedule and prepare for your home inspection. And I would say, let's see, 11 and 12 would kind of done it around the same time. So you'll prepare for your home inspection, call your home inspector, and then you're also calling Tanya Lowe and her company or an insurance company to get insurance rates on the home and what it's going to cost you, because you have to submit that to your lender. At this point, while you're doing all that, your lender is going to come back to you and say, hey, what was that big deposit you put in your bank account? And start asking you all these questions. I think William just purchased a home. He's on the line. I'm sure he can attest to that they came back and asked for additional items and things. So just expect that that's normal. They're not picking on you in particular. They are just, they have to do their process and make sure that you are qualified and you're able to pay back the loan. That's just their job. So the quicker you can get them information, and again, I know the lender talked about this in the last call, the better off everything would just move smoothly. Also at that time, the title company is going to order the survey. Like Helen talked about, we need to make sure that the land you're purchasing, the boundaries are what you expect. Recently, actually, I had a client look at a home, and once I looked at the survey, they didn't put an offer on, but I looked at the property appraiser, and a part of their land actually was owned by someone across the street. So they thought they had this big corner lot when we went to look at it, and I pulled it up and was like, no, a big chunk of it was waterfront property, was owned by someone across the street. And they're like, so luckily we found that out, but these are things that come up in the survey. After all that's done, your lender is going to say you're approved, everything's final. Thank you for submitting all your documents on time and in a timely manner. Everything, you're ready to close. We're going to confirm your closing date. The day of closing or the night before, you would wire your money to the title company, all your balance for your closing costs and your down payment. The morning of, you do your walkthrough to make sure the house is still standing and it looks just like it looked when you saw it the first time. And then your closing day, you come in with your smile and your ID and you close. And you expect to be there on average for about an hour to 2 hours. Next slide. And William says they were super nosy about my financials. That's their job, William, unfortunately. It's part of the process.
Yes, and we just tell people, don't get frustrated. Like Tamara said, they are not picking on you. This is just part of the process. And sometimes we see this when people get pre-qualified and they get really excited, right? Because they're like, yes, I was told that I've been approved for X, Y, and Z. And not really, it's just like they need additional information to kind of verify that. So don't get frustrated. It's the process. Just trust the process and provide the information that they need, and they'll get to the finish line.
And can I just touch on that? Because you said pre-qualified. So I just want to clarify pre-qualified versus pre-approval, because there is a slight difference. So the pre-qualification process is when you can call up a lender. Let's say you're just starting out and you want to get a rough idea of what you qualify for. You can call a lender up and they'll ask you some qualifying questions such as, how much money do you make? What was the income on your tax returns, et cetera. And you can give that information and they're typing it in while they're talking to you, and they pop up with a number and say, okay, well, you're qualified for 300,000, pre-qualified. You say, great, okay. Then you're not pre-approved. So that's like step one. That's to kind of give you an idea. To go a step further is when you actually submit all that documentation to them so they can verify it, to give you a pre-approval letter. So you would submit your tax returns, you would submit your bank statements and your pay stubs. So that takes it a little further. And again, in this market, we're about to talk about what kind of market we're in. You want to have that and have a solid pre-approval, because it makes you more competitive when you're submitting your offer.
Yes. So the market that we're in, you may have heard these terms being tossed around and just trying to figure out, what does that mean? Are we in a seller's market versus a buyer's market? Like, how do you make the determination of what market we're in right now? So there's a few things listed here that Tamara will explain to let you know if we're in a seller's market or a buyer's market.
Yeah, so currently we are in a seller's market. And I just pulled some statistics really quick about what's going on in St. Lucie County. I won't bore you with the details that fascinate me, but just to give you an idea of what that means. First of all, it means that there's many, many more buyers than homes available for sale. So the seller's market means the sellers have their pick of the litter. If you're trying to sell your home now, guarantee you'll have, when you put your house on the market, if it's priced right, and even if it's not, even if it's priced a little more, you're going to have buyers. I called on a house yesterday that went on the market yesterday. Before I could get over there to show it, they already had 4 offers on the home, and they were like, we put it on at 12, it's 5 o'clock, we're not showing anymore, we have 4 offers. So the sellers have their pick of the litter. So what does that mean? How did this happen? So last year before COVID, I'm just going to give you a couple of statistics. February 2020, I just pulled February 2020 versus February 2021, because those were the latest statistics to come out. So just to give you an example, last year in February, there were 2,800 homes on the market in St. Lucie County. Right now, they're in February of this year, there were only 1,257. That's 55% less inventory on the market, and those buyers are still there looking. The prices have gone up 19%. The average home price in St. Lucie County was $370,000. It's now $440,000. Okay. Also, it was taking for the amount of time that houses were staying on the market last year versus this year, 52 days versus 20 days now. And what we call an absorption rate in real estate, meaning if no other homes were to come on the market right now, how long would it take for all those homes to sell? In February of last year, it was 4 months absorption rate. If those 2,800 homes sat on the market, it would take 4 months for all those homes to sell if nothing else hit the market. Right now, we're only at a month. 1.6 months worth of inventory. So we are in a hot seller's market. So what can you do with that? I mean, again, you have so many buyers looking for a home. You're going to be competing against several other buyers for the same home. Sellers aren't negotiating as much. You may have to offer more than what the house is listed for in order to compete. And it's one of the things a lot of my buyers are doing, they're buying new construction because you don't have that competition. You have to wait. So if you don't need to sell your home, or you're thinking about buying in 10 months or next year, start that process of new construction. But there are some things that you can do, such as, as long as you go in prepared, it's not a market where you can say, hey, I want to go in and start, if a house is listed for 250,000, say, oh, I want to offer 225 to see what happens. That's just not the market we're in. You just, as long as you're educated and prepared, you go in strong, and you will get a home eventually. It just may take some time. It's just knowing what to expect in the market right now. Helen, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just exactly what you said, in terms of how long things are staying on the market. I mean, I've had several buyers that have been frustrating. You schedule the appointment to go see a home and it's already under contract, or they already have multiple offers. So if you are looking to buy, you have to keep that in mind, right? So you have to be ready to go. And this is what I tell my buyers. Right. This is not a type of market where you see a house on Monday and say, I'm going to, you see it online on Monday and say, oh, let's schedule it for Saturday. Not that kind of market. Like,
exactly. After this call, I'm going to show a house at 8:30 because it came on the market today. And then I was like, we have to go tonight or it won't be there tomorrow. So it's really that type of market.
Right. But I'll say for sellers, I mean, if you're looking to sell, let us sell your home. We will get it sold.
And Helen and I can work together. We can definitely work together with sellers. So that's something to keep in mind too. So
definitely. And I know one of the homes that I sold super quick, I put it on the market at noon. We had a buyer by 1 p.m. And that was that. I had already scheduled, I'm going to do an open house. Here's what's going to happen. That never, ever happened. I didn't even have time to put a sign in the yard. We had offer accepted and closed in a few weeks. Yeah. And so it's a great market to be in, but you have to kind of understand the market going in, so you're not discouraged for when if you put in an offer on a home and you don't get it. Don't let that crush you. There's other homes out there. You just have to be prepared.
Next slide, and we could talk a little bit about some other things that you can do. So again, just be flexible when looking for a home in this market. I recommend looking on off days. Everyone's out on the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So you'll see cars lined up. So if you can go on a Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday before the rush on Saturday and Sunday, it kind of helps you get ahead of the game. Be able to look right away. Like I said, a home came on the market. My client gets off at 6. I was like, hey, I could be there at 8:30. So let's go today and start off strong. There's really no room for negotiation. You probably won't get a second chance with a counter offer. So just don't get discouraged. Your home is definitely out there. Next slide. And so one thing I just wanted to mention, and the property appraiser will be on the call next week, correct?
That's correct.
No, yeah. So I like to just mention this to first-time home buyers about the benefits of the homestead exemption. So one of the great benefits of owning a home and having it be your primary residence is that you have some tax benefits. So I'm going to start with B. So first of all, the first $50,000 of assessed value is exempt from taxes. So what that means is that, let's say, assessed value, and I'm going to let the property appraiser go into this more next week. I won't go into that, but the assessed value is slightly different than the market value. But when the assessor looks at the value, 50,000 off the top, you won't pay taxes on. But one of the biggest benefits is in this market where everything is increasing, you are capped at how much your taxes can increase to only 3% a year. If you're not homestead exempt, your taxes can go up as much as 10% a year. That is a lot of money in taxes. So you really save money when you get that homestead exemption, and you have that cap. Also, just one thing I also like to mention to people, when they're looking at houses, they see the taxes on one house and the taxes on another, and they think, oh, well, I want to go with that house because the taxes are lower. And it doesn't really work that way. When you buy a home, your taxes are reset to the current market value. So I like to give this example. Let's say Helen and I bought the exact same house next door. We wanted to live next door to each other back in 2005. Same house, closed the same day. And we were like, hey, I want to be your next door neighbor. We both paid $200,000 for the house and our taxes were $2,000 a year. But I went back to Connecticut, and this was my second home, where Helen stayed and lived in Port St. Lucie as her primary. Mm-hmm. Me going back to Connecticut, I can't homestead that. I don't get the benefit of that 3% cap. So Helen's taxes are $2,000. The next year, 3% goes up to $2,060, if my math is correct. For me, because I'm not homesteaded, my taxes go up to $2,200. So, and that keeps going up and up and up. So when we both go to sell our houses, my taxes, because it wasn't my primary, may be at $5,000 a year because it's gone up so much over the years. Helen's taxes may be at $3,000 a year because it was her homestead. If you're looking and saying, oh, well, I want Helen's house because her taxes are lower, that's not how it works. When you buy your house, the next year when they assess the taxes again, they're going to look at the current tax rate, which is what I'm paying. So you're going to jump up and then you're going to be homesteaded. So the property appraiser will talk more about that. But I like, because people are always looking at, oh, I like this, and that, why is that one in the same neighborhood lower? It's really, you'll get that benefit for the year until it's reassessed, but it's going to jump up and then stabilize, if that makes sense.
Right. And sometimes too, what you'll see is that the current owner may have certain exemptions that apply to them. And the property appraiser, again, we'll talk about that next week. Maybe they're a widow and they get a special exemption for that, or whatever other exemptions that they have out there. So just to let you know, our presenter for next week is going to be phenomenal. She is the St. Lucie County property appraiser. However, she'll give information that's specific to St. Lucie, but she's also going to cover information that may differ from different counties or possibly different states. So you don't want to miss that. You don't want to miss her presentation. Next slide.
And I think that's the end of our presentation. Does anyone have any questions? I know William said, does that apply to condos? And I don't know, I apologize, I didn't catch the comment. If you want to write in. Oh, the homestead exemption. You will definitely get 25%. I'm sorry, 25,000. It depends on the price, whether you get the other 25. It depends on the amount. So 110 was the closing bid. I would have to double check that. If you're going to be on the call next week, that's a really good question for the property appraiser.
Exactly.
So, but I can check that. If we have your contact information, I can get that question answered for you and get it to you tomorrow. Does anyone else have any questions? Well, if no other questions.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we just thank you. We thank you for your time.
Yeah, this was great. Thank you so much, everyone who's on the call.
Yes, and if you do have any other questions, you know, take this time to just type them in the chat. But we will also be providing you our email address where you can, if you're not thinking of the question right now, you can ask, you can email us, and we will try to respond to you in a very timely manner. Next, and okay. So at this point, what you should see on your screen is a webinar evaluation. Just like we did the first time, this is, we're gonna ask you to point your camera, open up your camera, and hold your device to the QR code until your device recognizes it. And we ask you to complete this webinar evaluation for us at this moment. I hope everyone that's on here, who's probably thinking about buying, thinking about selling, received a little bit more information than you had before you joined this masterclass today. And we ask that if you have any additional questions, you can either reach out to myself or Tamara. But let's get to buying. Like Tamara said, fire your landlord, and let's get in a home. I'll turn this back over to Tanya.
Yes. Thank you so much to our presenters this evening for such awesome information. Thank you so much to Helen Lurie and Tamara Celeste. We are so pleased to have received so much information from the two of you. And you can count on me to make certain that I refer my customers who are moving to the area, who are new to the area, to the two of you. So that you can help them out with finding their home, their dream home. And we certainly appreciate you making the home buying process simple and easy and taking away that anxiety and that confusion for home buyers here on the Treasure Coast. As you can see on your screen, this is our program team. I want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Next slide. If you have completed your evaluation, this is how you can contact us. Let's see what we have in the chat. Helen, if you and Tamara would like to include your contact information in the chat, that would be phenomenal. That way our participants can reach out to you with questions that they may have for you. And we'll just take a moment to include your information. Okay, and I see Tamara has included her information in the chat. And Helen is working, she's adding hers as well. Thank you so much. And we do show that the prize for the pre-evaluation will go to Mr. William Dixon. We do like to say congratulations to you on closing on your home. And if we may have a few moments, if you'd like to share your story. I saw that Ms. Jackson asked if you wanted to share your story. If not, we completely understand, but we do appreciate everyone participating with us this afternoon. And Ms. Lurie has also added her information, her contact information, so that you can reach her as well. Thank you so much. And our next slide. This concludes our webinar for this evening, Discovering the Treasures of Homeownership. Buy homes, not shoes, finding the right realtors. And I think you got the two right realtors right here on the Treasure Coast. Thank you.